Hi, welcome back to Lighthouse Christian Church. I'm Shirley Chancellor, pastor, and another segment of At the Table with Shirley. Actually, I'm not at a table or at the church, so please forget the virtual background. But our topic for today, and just a brief discussion, is if the world says it's legal, does that make it okay? All right. That's a lot for us to think about, especially in these days and times, isn't it? With laws being passed to make it this legal or that legal, and also to make it illegal for some of us to refuse to join in on that or to allow it in our establishments or in our homes. So laws can be very dangerous, can't they? They're supposed to be made to protect all of us, but sometimes they don't, do they? And something that I've been thinking about a lot, because there are issues coming up for election that affect us greatly. And those of us who are older in the faith, especially, and of course, I talk mostly to people who are believers, but we really need to be thinking about the next generation, don't we? How does this affect them? I know in our little county, and we're very rural county, and the ballot is supposed to have an option to make our county a wet county. In other words, they'll be able to build liquor stores, virtually on every corner, and sell alcohol when it's readily available just a few minutes down the road in another county. But of course, I'm not for it. But what does that send? What kind of message does that send? And of course, you hear the argument, well, they drive so far to get it, and they have wrecks, and they're going to drive to those towns anyway because there's nothing in our rural area for them to do. So that's not going to change. But what do you think about the message that it sends? And I really want this to be a discussion, not an accusation. Or I believe everyone has the right to vote the way they want to and believe they want the way they want to. But just think for a minute, what message does that send to the younger generation when we say something is legal now? It tells them that it's okay, doesn't it? Of course, the argument is they do it anyway. Well, some may, but they do it knowing it's wrong. They do it knowing they shouldn't if it's not legal. Or they've been taught in church that it's wrong for some reason. And not just alcohol. There's a lot of things being made legal and okay that biblically are not. And I'm not saying this one issue is biblically, wrong or anything like that. But what kind of message? Our school and our tiny little community is the hub of our community. Our children, our ball games, our everything connected with school. I taught there myself for 24 years. What message does it send to our children if we have a liquor store in the middle of our community, or if, our near our churches, I don't know where, but we're such a small community. It's not wherever they might put one in, it's going to be close to our school, isn't it? So what kind of message does that send? When laws are passed that it's okay to murder an unborn child, I consider it murder. You may not, and that's your right. I'm not arguing with you about it. But when laws are passed to say it's okay, what does that do to desensitize everyone to the fact that that's another human? It's kind of like these movies they make. I've never seen them, but I've heard the premise, like Game of Thrones or Hunger Games, or I'm probably not even calling the title right, but the premise that I've heard. Life is so, just a vapor, and they think nothing about killing someone for various reasons. What kind of message does that send when we say it's okay to kill anyone of any age? And I know now they're trying to make it legal to abort a child up to like a year old. I don't know how they can call it abortion when the baby is already alive and probably walking around and talking by then, but it just worries me the direction our society is heading. And it worries God too. And we're going to be held accountable for that. We're going to be held accountable for how we vote, or if we vote, if the Lord leads us to. And there is a scripture, there's several, but there's one in Isaiah 10 that I'd like to share, verses 1-4. Woe to those who legalize injustice and write oppressive legislation. You rip away the rights of the poor and prey upon widows and orphans. What will come of you on your day of visitation when disaster comes from afar? To whom will you run for help? And what will you do then with all your great wealth? It's all about money, isn't it? You have no option but to cringe when the captives fall among the corpses of the slain. Yet, despite all this, his anger has not subsided, and his hand is poised to strike. The first sentence in those verses: woe to those who legalize injustice and write oppressive legislation. That's in Isaiah 10, 1-4. And Leviticus 19:15. Do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. We don't see a lot of that going on, do we? Not a lot of fairness in our judicial system. 1 Samuel 8:10. So Samuel delivered God's warning to the people who were asking him to give them a king. He said, this is the way the kind of king you're talking about operates. He'll take your sons and make soldiers of them. Chariotery, cavalry, infantry, regimented in battalions and squadrons. He'll put some to forced laborers on his farms, plowing and harvesting, and others to making either weapons of war or chariots in which he can ride in luxury. He'll put your daughters to work as beauticians and waitresses and cooks. He'll constrict your best fields, vineyards, and orchards and hand them over to his special friends. He'll tax your harvest and vintage to support his extensive bureaucracy. Your prize workers and best animals he'll take for his own use. He'll lay a tax on your flocks and you'll end up no better than slaves. The day will come when you will cry in desperation because of this king you want so much for yourselves. But don't expect God to answer. Wow. I know that was very relevant at that time because they were wanting a king instead of a disciple or a prophet to lead them under God's supervision and direction. Well, isn't it the same now? We need to be careful which king or president or governor or sheriff that we elect. We need to be very careful. Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who replace darkness with light and light with darkness, who replace bitter and sweet with sweet and sweet with bitter. James 4:17. And anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. And the last one, 1 Timothy 6:9-10. But those who want to be rich fall into temptation, a trap, and many foolish and harmful desires which plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, and by craving it, some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. I had a discussion earlier this year with someone who asked me to sign a petition to help make our county wet. And I said, no. No, I said, crime rate goes up. Our neighboring county did the same thing, and they went wet a couple of years ago, and their crime rate has gone up, and it's living conditions are a lot worse. I know several people that live there, and I've asked them about it, and they said things are much worse since they made their county wet and started building liquor stores here and there. So it wasn't true what they're saying. Oh, we'll have better roads. The money can be used to fix roads. Well, I've been around long enough to know that that's not true. When they've raised our taxes for this reason or that, our roads are no better off than they've ever been. And I've had decades to make a comparison. So what they're saying is not true. It will not be better. And it certainly will not be better for our younger generation to say, oh, it's available now, it's ready. I had someone make the comment one time, oh, you want my child to have a wreck trying to go to a liquor store? And I said, no, I want you to teach your child not to drink. Duh. You know, what are you teaching your child? And I know children go off and they do things that you've taught them not to. And, you know, and that's where we pray and cover them and ask God's hands of protection on them. But that doesn't justify making them think that things are okay when they're not. And when you make it legal, when it's made legal, and all of these unjust, as Isaiah 10 says, those who legalize injustice and write oppressive legislation, they will pay for that. They will answer for that someday. But, you know, I, for one, am not going to support it. Now, my faith, my God would not allow it. It's those people who are wanting to do those things, and especially here, because it's closer to my heart right now. It's my county, and it's something that's being decided. The people who are pushing this, all they see is dollar signs. They see a way to make money. That's all it is. It's the cold-heartedness of people who have a lust for money. I know that's harsh, but it's true. It's just true. That's all it is. If they really thought about others and their young people and their children and their grandchildren, there's no way they would vote for it. Same with making marijuana legal or any of those things. It's sending the message to our young people that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Help yourself. And that's just wrong. And I'd welcome your comments, kind comments. And you're welcome to disagree with me. But I'm just telling you how the Lord feels about it and how I feel about it. But I do hope when November 8th rolls around, and even before, because we do have early election, that you will prayerfully consider how you vote, not only for the people, but for the issues. And think about our children. Think about the next generation. Think about our future. Anyway, pray for me and I'll pray for you. And love you all. And I'll see you next time. Bye.